A reading from 2 Kings chapter 19. As soon as King Hezekiah heard their report, he tore his clothes in grief, put on sackcloth, and went to the temple of the Lord. He sent Eliakim, the official in charge of the palace, Shebna, the court secretary, and the senior priests, to the prophet Isaiah, son of Amoz. They also were wearing sackcloth. This is the message which he told them to give Isaiah. Today is a day of suffering. We are being punished and are in disgrace. We are like a woman who is ready to give birth, but is too weak to do it. The Assyrian emperor has sent his chief official to insult the living God. May the Lord your God hear these insults and punish those who spoke them. So pray to God for those of our people who survive. When Isaiah received King Hezekiah's message, he sent back this answer. The Lord tells you not to let the Assyrians frighten you with their claims that he cannot save you. The Lord will cause the emperor to hear a rumor that will make him go back to his own country, and the Lord will have him killed there. The Assyrian official learned that the emperor had left Lachish and was fighting against the nearby city of Libnah, so he went there to consult him. Word reached the Assyrians that the Egyptian army, led by King Tirhakah of Ethiopia, was coming to attack them. When the emperor heard this, he sent a letter to King Hezekiah of Judah to tell him, the God you are trusting in has told you that you will not fall into my hands, but don't let that deceive you. You have heard what an Assyrian emperor does to any country he decides to destroy. Do you think that you can escape? My ancestors destroyed the cities of Gozan, Haran, and Rezeph, and killed the people of Betheden who lived in Telassar, and none of their gods could save them. Where are the kings of the cities of Hamath, Arpad, Sepharvaim, Hena, and Eva? King Hezekiah took the letter from the messengers and read it. Then he went to the temple, placed the letter there in the presence of the Lord, and prayed, O Lord, the God of Israel, seated on your throne above the winged creatures, you alone are God, ruling all the kingdoms of the world. You created the earth and the sky. Now, Lord, look at what is happening to us. Listen to all the things that Sennacherib is saying to insult you, the living God. We all know, Lord, that the emperors of Assyria have destroyed many nations, made their lands desolate, and burned up their gods, which were no gods at all, only images of wood and stone made by human hands. Now, Lord our God, rescue us from the Assyrians, so that all the nations of the world will know that only you, O Lord, are God. Then Isaiah sent a message telling King Hezekiah that in answer to the king's prayer, the Lord had said, the city of Jerusalem laughs at you, Sennacherib, and makes fun of you. Whom do you think you have been insulting and ridiculing? You have been disrespectful to me, the holy God of Israel. You sent your messengers to boast to me that with all your chariots you had conquered the highest mountains of Lebanon. You boasted that there you cut down the tallest cedars and the finest cypress trees, and that you reached the deepest parts of the forests. You boasted that you dug wells and drank water in foreign lands, and that the feet of your soldiers tramped the Nile River dry. Have you never heard that I planned all this long ago? And now I have carried it out. I gave you the power to turn fortified cities into piles of rubble. The people who lived there were powerless. They were frightened and stunned. They were like grass in a field or weeds growing on a roof when the hot east wind blasts them. But I know everything about you, what you do and where you go. I know how you rage against me. I have received the report of that rage and that pride of yours, and now I will put a hook through your nose and a bit in your mouth and take you back by the same road you came. Then Isaiah said to King Hezekiah, "Here is a sign of what will happen. This year and next you will have only wild grain to eat, but the following year you will be able to plant your grain and harvest it, and plant vines and eat grapes. Those in Judah who survive will flourish like plants that send roots deep into the ground and produce fruit. There will be people in Jerusalem and on Mount Zion who will survive, because the Lord is determined to make this happen. And this is what the Lord has said about the Assyrian emperor. He will not enter the city or shoot a single arrow against it. No soldiers with shields will come near the city, and no siege mounds will be built around it. He will go back by the same road he came, without entering the city. I, the Lord, have spoken. I will defend the city and protect it for the sake of my own honor and because of the promise I made to my servant David." That night, an angel of the Lord went to the Assyrian camp and killed 185,000 soldiers. At dawn the next day, there they lay, all dead. Then the Assyrian emperor Sennacherib withdrew and returned to Nineveh. One day, when he was worshipping in the temple of his god Nisroch, two of his sons, Adramelech and Sharezer, killed him with their swords and then escaped to the land of Ararat. Another of his sons, Esarhaddon, succeeded him as emperor. The word of the Lord. A reading from 2 Kings chapter 20. About this time, King Hezekiah became sick and almost died. The prophet Isaiah, son of Amoz, went to see him and said to him, "The Lord tells you that you are to put everything in order because you will not recover. Get ready to die." Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and prayed, "Remember, Lord, that I have served you faithfully and loyally, and that I have always tried to do what you wanted me to." And he began to cry bitterly. Isaiah left the king, but before he had passed through the central courtyard of the palace, the Lord told him to go back to Hezekiah, ruler of the Lord's people, and say to him, "I, the Lord, the God of your ancestor David, have heard your prayer and seen your tears. I will heal you, and in 3 days you will go to the temple. I will let you live 15 years longer. I will rescue you and the city Jerusalem from the emperor of Assyria. I will defend the city for the sake of my own honor and because of the promise I made to my servant David." Then Isaiah told the king's attendants to put on his boil a paste made of figs and he would get well. King Hezekiah asked, "What is the sign to prove that the Lord will heal me and that 3 days later I will be able to go to the temple?" Isaiah replied, "The Lord will give you a sign to prove that he will keep his promise. Now, would you prefer to have the shadow on the stairway go forward 10 steps or go back 10 steps?" Hezekiah answered, "It's easy to have the shadow go forward 10 steps. Have it go back 10 steps." Isaiah prayed to the Lord, and the Lord made the shadow go back 10 steps on the stairway set up by King Ahaz. About that same time, the king of Babylonia, Merodach-Baladan, the son of Baladan, heard that King Hezekiah had been sick, so he sent him a letter and a present. Hezekiah welcomed the messengers and showed them his wealth, his silver and gold, his spices and perfumes, and all his military equipment. There was nothing in his storerooms or anywhere in his kingdom that he did not show them. Then the prophet Isaiah went to King Hezekiah and asked, "Where did these men come from and what did they say to you?" Hezekiah answered, "They came from a very distant country, from Babylonia." "What did they see in the palace?" "They saw everything. There is nothing in the storerooms that I didn't show them." Isaiah then told the king, "The Lord Almighty says that a time is coming when everything in your palace, everything that your ancestors have stored up to this day, will be carried off to Babylonia. Nothing will be left. Some of your own direct descendants will be taken away and made eunuchs to serve in the palace of the king of Babylonia." King Hezekiah understood this to mean that there would be peace and security during his lifetime, so he replied, "The message you have given me from the Lord is good." Everything else that King Hezekiah did, his brave deeds, and an account of how he built a reservoir and dug a tunnel to bring water into the city, are all recorded in the history of the kings of Judah. Hezekiah died and his son Manasseh succeeded him as king. The word of the Lord.